Hey guys, welcome back to my vlog. So hopefully I have enough time to cover this topic all in one video, but if not, I'll be coming back with a part two. So I'm going to talk to you guys for about a good 45 minutes on why marriages don't work. Now, of course, we know not all marriages fail, and exactly, the statistic says that one out of every two marriages end in divorce. So approximately 40 to 50% of marriages in the United States end in divorce. So we do know that some marriages are successful. But I'm just going to focus on, in this video, why marriages don't work. Because I truly believe that marriage is just not for everybody, right? I know you guys are like, what? What? I actually was inspired to do this video from a discussion that I just recently had in one of my classes. I'm taking a marriage and family therapy class in my PhD program, and we were talking about the influence of intergenerational patterns on a person's current relationship or current marriage. Now, hopefully you guys can hear me because I am outside and other people sitting outside. So hopefully you guys can hear me over the noise. But yeah, we were having a discussion today in my class, and we were just talking about, the influence of intergenerational patterns, which we know exist in every family system. And I started to think about some things. I had some questions for the professor, and one of the questions that I posed was, I wonder if there's a direct correlation between the likelihood or the level of commitment that a person has to his or her family in relation to the level of commitment that they have to their current relationship or marriage. And he's like, that's a good question. So it kind of sparked me to create this video to talk to you guys a little bit more about this, because this is something I feel very passionate about. Like, I am not married. I'm a single African American 34-year-old woman with no kids, never married. But marriage is something I actually aspire to, and I look at marriage as an institution, which it is. And it's interesting because I think back to when I was an undergraduate student at Florida State University many years ago. It was like over 12 years ago that I graduated from Florida State. I remember I was taking a research methods class, and as part of that class, we actually were required to create create and conduct a study. And lo and behold, the topic that I chose was marriage and divorce. So I created this study basically to assess the students within my class. It was a little kind of like an experimental study, a practical study that I put together to assess students' current attitudes towards marriage in relation to their parents' marital status. Because as a child who is a product of parents who have been separated, now they didn't legally get divorced, interesting enough. Like, my mom is still legally married to my dad, but at the age of 12, my mom and my dad separated officially. So they broke up, they went their separate ways, and I was 12 years old when this happened. But they are still legally, very much still legally married, and I always wonder, like, okay, what's up with that? But maybe, I don't know, maybe she just wanted to keep his last name. Maybe she likes his last name, or maybe she didn't want to divorce, because just people have many different reasons for not officially getting a divorce. So me, my mother, my father, we all share the exact same last name because my parents were married when they had me. And look at that little birdie, y'all. Okay, focus. Okay, so yeah, being that I am a product of I might just say marital separation between my mother and my father, that did obviously have an impact on me, but it created in me a curiosity about marriage and how some couples are able to stay married, and why do other couples just divorce? Like, what is a contributing factor? And of course, there's a lot of research on this, and when you read the research kind of points in the direction of finances, attributing financial distress as the number one problem or precipitating factor for why couples get a divorce. And I'm thinking, okay, that may be something on the surface, but I think that it goes a lot deeper than that. I think it really does, because you can have couples from all different types, levels of socioeconomic status end up getting divorced. No matter if you're poverty, middle class, upper class, wealthy, divorce affects all different shades of people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily finances. I would like to look at it from more of a systems approach, a psychodynamic approach, which is basically my theoretical approach that I take in working with clients. And it's interesting because I also work the current clinical site where I'm seeing clients at now is actually, we actually focus on treating couples, not only just individuals, but we treat couples and we treat families, you know. So there's a lot to learn at the current site that I'm working at now. And I feel, like I said, I feel very passionate about this because it's unfortunate that you have people who fall in love and for some reason it doesn't work out. It just doesn't. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit briefly about why I think it doesn't work out. You know, and I really think it does have to do with intergenerational patterns that exist in a person's family of origin, because you will have a person who comes from, it can be male or female, who comes from a background, a family background where marriage and commitment wasn't necessarily one of the values. It's not something that people, you know, held true to. You know, people, I think, kind of say loosely like they value commitment, they value marriage, but it's like, how much do people really, really value marriage? That is the main question, I think. So it's easier, definitely easier said than done. People are, you know, quick to say, you know, in words that they love a person, they value marriage, but I don't think that people like really truly understand how much involved you have to be to maintain an ongoing marriage. You know, like how committed you have to be to the institution of marriage for it to work. And when you look at intergenerational patterns, of course, that has a effect on a person's psyche, you know, their internal processes. So you take an individual and just, let's say, look at them, evaluate them to see what kind of person that they are. Honestly, I feel a lot of people are not equipped to be married. Like, they just should not get married. And I don't think it's no amount of therapy that can change it. I think it's really a personality thing. Some people have a disposition, not to say they can't get involved in relationships, but marriage is a totally different kind of relationship. And I think that given that there are different types of marriages, right? So you have, you know, closed marriages where there's an agreement between two people that, okay, it's just going to be me and you, and that's it. Nobody else. We're not stepping outside. We're not dating anybody else. We're not bringing anybody else in. It's just going to be you and I. And then you have open marriages where it's like the complete opposite. You know, there's a mutual agreement that it's okay if we bring other people in. And in fact, a lot of times for some marriages, it actually helps save the marriage. It spices it up, it strengthens the marriage, and it works for them. You know, so I feel like unless you have that kind of situation where it's open in a closed marriage, I think it's much more difficult to maintain that sanctity of to death do us part. Like, we're going to be together forever and ever and ever. That's a huge lifelong commitment that I feel that a lot of people, given their personalities, given their just internal disposition, they are not equipped to commit to such long-term commitment through thick and thin. I think, if anything, the first glance, the first time that something wrong happens, the first time that there is some riffraff in a relationship, which is inevitable, you're going to face some trouble, some, you know, difficulties, some attacks. You know, things are going to happen within your marriage that you probably didn't even expect. there are going to be conflicts, and you're going to like have to come to terms on how to work through that. And I feel like a lot of people have a certain attitude, like it's about me. If I'm not happy, I'm leaving. And I feel like that attitude is shaped by our society's culture. We live in a culture. Look at the music. Look at the reality television shows. Like, it promotes this culture, this ideology of me, me, me. It's all about me. If a person doesn't keep you happy, if a person doesn't pleases you, then it's almost like they're giving you the permission to move on, because it's all about yourself. And be quite honest, that's not what marriage is about. It's not all about you being the person pleasing you or you pleasing the other person. That can be part of it, but that's not what sustains a marriage, to be honest. And it's interesting how people will hold true to that belief. And it's like, how in the world, if you have that kind of thinking that, okay, unless I'm happy, this isn't going to work. You're not always going to be happy in a marriage. There are going to be a lot of compromises. And I want you guys who are married, who have been married for some time, help us out. Feel free to comment below and share your opinions and your thoughts on what has been effective for you in your marriage. What has worked for you? I know every couple has their strategies on how they get through conflict and they resolve conflict, but I'm curious to know what works for you. What has worked for you? So, given that people have that kind of frame of thinking, like, okay, if sometimes people will give each other like ultimatums. So they'll say, okay, unless this person does X, Y, and Z, then it's not going to work, and I don't want to be with that person. It's just like, you can't give a person that kind of ultimatum. Excuse me, are you about to smoke? Oh, because I'm a little bit allergic too.
I'm sorry, sweetie, you're sitting right next to the ashtray.
There's an ashtray here?
Yeah, that's the smoking table.
Oh. See, I think I picked the wrong spot, you guys. Let me see, can I try to get through this? But yeah, it's like people aren't willing to make those compromises. And so no matter how long a person has been in a relationship, it's like people are willing to just throw it away, willing to say, all right, well, this person didn't do this. This person, let's say, for example, didn't want to go to therapy. This person didn't want to go, back to school to increase their earning potential, to help bring in more income in the household. So I'm just fed up. I'm going to leave that person, right? People are more interested in what is in the best interest for themselves as opposed to what's in the best interest for the entire marriage, the relationship. So that's where I think we run into these problems, and people end up deciding, you know what, I can't do this. It's just the marriage in and of itself becomes a burden for them. They just can no longer sustain themselves in something that they feel is overwhelming, is bigger than them, And especially, I think another issue is that you may have one person who is very much committed to trying to save the marriage, and the other person is just like, whatever, I don't care, So I think that in and of itself is why a lot of marriages just don't work. People say, unless I'm happy, unless he's pleasing me, unless she's pleasing me, keeping me happy, then it's not going to work. And from a psychological perspective, a person can go into a marriage with baggage. They can go into a marriage and not be happy. And they're seeking the marriage as a tool to make them happy. That in and of itself is a problem. Like, if you go into a marriage and you have all of these unresolved issues, personal issues that have nothing to do with your marriage, that you're bringing into the relationship expecting that somehow love is going to fix it, then of course you're going to still be unhappy. Not only that, you're going to be frustrated and angry because you're like, okay, I get with this person, and not only am I still dissatisfied, not only am I still depressed or sad, and I'm carrying these emotional problems, these psychological, personal problems, but they've gotten worse. For example, somebody may come into the marriage and may have a substance abuse issue, thinking that somehow, okay, love is going to fix that abuse that they have, in the relationship they have towards with this drug that they use. And no, marriage, I feel like, yes, marriage, love itself can be very warm, can be very comforting, can be very reassuring, but it's not going to fix an abuse problem that you have with your, it's just not. That's not the role that marriage plays. Marriage, again, like I said, is an institution. It's like a business, you know. It's it's a coming together of two, sometimes it be more people, because you have polyamorous relationships, polygamous relationships where there's more than two people that come together, but it's a union. It's agreement. It's really a legal contract, bringing two or more people together. All right, sorry about that. I had a notification, but and to have this assumption that somehow your life, like the personal issues in your life, the deep dark secrets, the demons that you have been wrestling with as an individual, are going to somehow just miraculously go away because you're all of a sudden now in love with this person who's just, you thought that you were going to marry, and your life was just going to somehow become perfect. That's, I feel like, a very, very false expectation. And we all know the danger in having false expectations. When you go into something expecting something and then that something doesn't happen, you don't get that thing that you're expecting, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You set yourself up for frustration, especially if you have this hope. Not only with the expectation, you have this hope that, okay, my life is gonna get better. The depression is gonna go away. The addiction is gonna go away, and it never goes away. You're just gonna become more and more frustrated, and then you're gonna start blaming the other person and projecting your problems onto the other person, saying it's your fault. When really, no, it has nothing to do with that person. It is really your fault. You brought that problem into the relationship, expecting that somehow the relationship was going to fix it, which it never does. So that's why even in marriage therapy, couples therapy, sometimes the therapist actually works with each individual separately, because there are some issues that need to be resolved. Now, there are some issues that are pretty extensive, pretty deep. Then what the marriage therapist may do is recommend that they receive individual counseling. So they refer each individual in the relationship to a therapist outside, so that they can be able to work on those issues individually. But it's not cut and dry. It's not as simple as, oh, we just had financial problems, so that's why we split up. It's like, no, because I've seen many couples, even in relationships that I've been in, where it's been financial problems and we were together. If anything, the financial problems is what brought us together. Now, yes, financial problems can create a great deal of stress that sometimes people feel like, no, I just can't deal with this. They feel like maybe they can navigate through those problems best by themselves. But if anything, we know that, okay, two heads are better than one. Two incomes obviously are better than one. So you have two people. Yes, you may be having financial difficulty, but you're more likely to overcome that financial difficulty if you are both bringing in income. Now, there's a whole nother issue if you have one person kind of pulling in all the weight and bringing in all the money, and then you have the other person kind of just using them as a crutch and leaning on them to take care of them. Then yes, that definitely can set up a situation. Yeah, I'm sitting up under this tree and these things keep falling down. But that definitely can set up a situation where the person who is carrying the weight can feel overburdened and tired and just feel like, I can't do this anymore. And they step outside of the relationship. And I do have to keep track of time because at 1 o'clock I have class. But that I pretty much set the stage for why I truly believe a lot of marriages just don't work, y'all. And that is the reason why you have ministers who will not marry a couple without premarital counseling. That's the reason why premarital counseling is so important, because you have to make sure you're ready for this. And not everybody is ready for marriage. I mean, look, one out of every two marriages end in divorce. 40 to 50% of marriages are likely to end in divorce. With that being said alone, it's just like there stands a good chance, no matter who you are, the marriage is not going to work. There stands a good chance that there's a risk that, hey, it's just not going to work. And I think a lot of people don't take that reality, they don't take that reality seriously. You know, so I'm like, oh well, I'm just gonna be different, it's gonna work because, you know, I'm different. And I'm just like, no, that is not that's not the case. And not being cognizant of these intergenerational patterns that exist, that you're bringing into that relationship, you're bringing into this new family dynamic that you're trying to create. You know, when a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a man come together, they're creating their own family system, a new family system that's separate from the family of origin that they come from. So not being aware of those intergenerational patterns, the intergenerational trauma that you're bringing in, that definitely can create its own dynamic within this new system that you are becoming a part of, that you automatically assume it's just going to work to death do us part. It don't work that way, y'all. I wish it did, but it don't work that way. So I'm actually going to cut this video short because I'm outside, I'm sweating, and the cigarette smoke is getting to me. But that is that is just my idea for why I think a lot of marriages don't work. And then when you look at some people, I ain't naming no names, but when you just look at the attitudes, the personalities of some people are very self-centered. They're very narcissistic, self-consumed. You know, it's like, how can you and get yourself involved in a relationship, let alone a marriage, or something that is going to work, when all you care about really is yourself? So the moment things don't go your way, you just like, okay, to hell with the other person. You know, and that's not what marriage is all about. It's like people use marriage as a crutch to get their own personal needs fulfilled, not even considering the other person's needs. You know, what does the other person want? I looked at this one person's video, and he was talking about the things that he's looking for in a woman, and he's all about, oh, what can she bring to the table? You know, that's the first thing that he asks. What can she bring? It's just like, how about what can you bring to the table? How about what can each other bring to the table? But it's all about me, 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 me. Like, that was his whole approach in the video. And I'm just like, ain't no way this dude is going to get married unless he marries a slave. He's looking for a slave, you know. And I think that's why it's important that people go to counseling, because counseling will help you become more self-aware of who you are, what it is you truly want, what it is you truly desire. You know, because people have these things, and they don't even, sometimes they don't even know this about themselves, and it pops up. They begin to discover themselves through being in a relationship with someone else. It's just like, no, you could have discovered that before you got into a relationship. And now you sit here and wasted another person's time, not, let alone your own time, in this freaking bullshit of a relationship that will never work. Because truly, what you desire and what you need, that other person cannot meet your needs or desires. You want somebody to be at your beck and call. You want somebody to be your slave, to do what you say, when you say it, how you say it. And hey, I'm not here to judge anyone. We all have our own personal preferences for what we look for in a partner. All I'm saying is that that kind of thinking mixed with, let's say, a traditional, or not even traditional, but a modern day woman. We know how, like, typical modern day women, like, we got our own income, we got our own thing going on, you know. So we with that comes power, the power to make your own decisions, to be an individual, to not necessarily have to answer to someone's beck and call, you know, but to kind of be on, to do your own thing, to be on your own schedule. You got your own income coming in, so it's not like a man can necessarily dictate what you do and how you do it like it was back in the day. So you have a man that has those desires. I think it's better for him to first of all know that about himself and to understand that 9 times out of 10, these women nowadays ain't going for that. You have to. That's a special kind of woman that you're looking for. It's more like a submissive slash slave, and that role in of itself is a very difficult role to fit in, to live up to, because it's like a woman who's very submissive, she relinquishes so much of her power. With that, she's sacrificing who she is. She's given up part of her control, which is part of who she is. That's part of everyone's identity, to have autonomy and self control. And she's at the whim of a man who's telling her, dictating everything that she should do according to what he desires and what he needs. And it can, shit, who knows what kind of needs he may have. All of these things that he wants her to do. But I think even that kind of dynamic, because there is a place for that, and especially within the BDSM community, the bondage, discipline, masochism community, BDSM for short, there are relationships like that, where you have the dom, the master with the slave or the submissive, and the the people actually who are involved in that kind of relationship they go in knowing what is expected of them. But even within that kind of community, it's like there still has to be an agreement made. There still has to be some discussion around, okay, what exactly do you want? I know that traditionally or generally speaking, this is what a lot of doms look for in a sub, but you are a special person. You are your own person. So what exactly do you want from me, being your slave or sub? So that, like I said, there is a place for that, but that has to be communicated with each other well in advance, because otherwise you're going to just bump into all these issues. Because you have men who are kind of still living in the olden times, right? They're living in old age, and they have this presumption that these women nowadays are still living back in those times too. And it's like, no, women are not living like that. Women are like, you know what, I got my own money, so I make my own decisions, and we can we can make decisions together. We can come to things together, but I still have a voice. So while a man may say, okay, I want things this way, women nowadays are like, no, I have a voice, so I can express how I want to see things in this relationship, you know? And I've seen where men who are very dominant, they just like, they ain't having it. They expect a woman to, a lot of men, you have some men that expect a woman to just be silent. Just like, you don't speak unless I tell you to speak. You don't speak unless you're spoken to. So if a woman is there and she wants to express herself and she wants to contribute to a conversation, unless she gets the man's permission, and let's say she come out and she start talking, that dominant man may become upset. Now just imagine you have these two people come together and this isn't brought to the forefront, to the table, in advance, and this issue comes out and this happens. Just imagine the level of conflict, the frustration, the anger that could issue from that type of encounter. So that's why it's important that couples go to premarital counseling. It's important that you know who you're falling in love with. It's important that you know yourself, more importantly, because it can get pretty grimy and people get involved in relationships and end up wasting time, waste money because they thought one thing when it really was something else. Now, for dominant men, the example that I just gave, let's say a man is like that, he does have that kind of desire where he wants to be with a submissive woman, then I would say for those kind of men, I mean, That's a rare situation. I feel like you're kind of limiting yourself because, like I said again, a lot of women think more egalitarian. They feel like, hey, if you want me to contribute 50-50 towards the bills, then guess what? I have 50-50 power in this relationship. It goes hand in hand. You can't separate the two. And that becomes another issue where you have men who like, oh, I want you to pay 50% towards the bills, but then they want to sit up here and dictate and make all the choices. Be like, oh, I'm the head of the household. I call all the shots. And it's just like, nah, son, it don't work that way. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. But there's so many reasons why marriages don't work, you know. And hi, Chris. I know you're married, and if you care to share, give us some tips. First of all, tell us how long you've been married, because I know you're involved in an interracial marriage, which is pretty political and pretty complicated. And then tell us what are some things, give us some tips on what keeps your marriage intact. Because with so many people divorcing, like it's insane. You got people who ain't been married for 6 months and filing for a divorce. And I just learned that actually here in California, even though you file for a divorce, you still have to wait 6 months before you can get an official divorce. So many people, just getting married, and then before you know it, they turn around and they divorce. They divorce two days later, you know. So, of course, me being a helping professional, my interest in this conversation is that I would like to create discussions on ways we can prevent this from happening. Now, of course, everything is not preventable. Some things are just bound to happen, but I feel like some things we can prevent. We can prevent just by talking about it, by sharing information and helping each other, being, transparent, just being honest about things. Chris says communication, trust, and honesty. Okay. Trust. I think those three things that you name, a lot of people say those. It's kind of like the go-to words, when people ask what's important in a relationship. People usually say communication, trust, and honesty, but it seems like a lot of relationships have that. Like even marriages that in a divorce, they have communication, they have trust, they have honesty. But what happens? Something has to happen in the course of that relationship and marriage that the communication is gone, the trust is gone, the honesty is gone. So it's like, what happens and how can that be prevented? Actually, a breakdown of communication is one of the biggest predictors of divorce, separation in a relationship. When you start to notice that your partner is shutting down on you and not talking, that's a big red flag right there. That's how you know something ain't right, because that communication breaks down. And the communication usually breaks down because there's a breakdown in trust. You don't talk to people you don't trust. No, you're not going to share information with somebody you feel kind of skeptical of. It has to be 100-100, not 50-50. I like that idea. You give your all into it, right? That's like working on a group project or a business project. You don't want to come half-stepping. You want to give 100% to it. I like that idea. Definitely. Another predictor, I actually made a video on this, the predictors. I think it's, I'm trying to remember, it's 4 or 5 predictors of divorce. And this is like a theory. It's couched in a theory. The name of the person is slipping my freaking mind. But there is a theory. And I learned it back in undergrad that the predictors of divorce: communication breakdown, when couples start to get into this mode where they're like arguing all the time and they're like easily irritated by the smallest thing. There's a word for that, which is evading my memory. Actually, like I said, I made a video on this, so I'll drop the link below, the official terms that they use in this theory. But essentially, it's like when you start to see like people in the relationship, they just get irritated over the smallest thing, like men call it nagging, women just start nagging. Smallest thing. Just imagine when you first fall in love in a relationship, it's all peaches and cream. Like nothing about that person can irritate you, because why? You see everything good about the person. Whereas when you know that separation is about to occur, is when a person, like the smallest thing that a person does to you bothers you. You get back what you invest. Exactly. I like that. See marriage as an investment, which I think is a good motivator for working towards maintaining the marriage. If you look at marriage as an investment, then there stands a strong likelihood that you're not gonna easily just back out, right? Because you're like, you know what, I've invested so much time into this relationship. It's an investment. You want to pull out of that. You want to be able to get your return on your investment, the time that you put into it. You want the return on that investment of time that you spent in the relationship would be longevity. The commitment, the love. I read the life. Well, I read the Live Dare book, and it taught me if you invest in your marriage, I'm always learning more and more about my wife. Love, not live. Yeah. Oh, Love Dare book. Okay. Exactly. You have to and see it as an investment, see it as an institution, see it as something sacred. Nowadays, let me check the time. Nowadays, okay, people don't even hardly value marriage anymore, like the sanctity of marriage. And it happens on both sides, but me being a woman, of course, I'm biased. So you got a lot of men who be like, they just stepping out the marriage and it's nothing to them to sleep around with different women, knowing that they married. I'm just like, how in the hell? You can't have no kind of respect. You can't even value the sanctity of marriage. You cannot value fidelity if you out here sleeping around with different women. It's like they get a thrill off that. It's like a drug for them. That excitement. It's a emotional high, you know, for them to tatter on the line of, okay, what if I get caught? What if I don't get caught? That's like, it gives them a surge of energy. It's like a drug, perhaps. And honestly, I think that has been like one of my biggest fears when it comes to falling in love and marriage or even getting pregnant by a guy. I'm just like, I ain't trying to be these other women out here who get knocked up, pregnant by some man, then he leave, which happens a lot of times. And it don't just happen in black relationships. It's happening across racial boundaries, where it happens. It's like right when the woman gets pregnant, before the baby comes, like what happens? Relationship goes to pieces. And then the baby comes, man ain't nowhere to be found. Just like you thought they were in love, but it's like, what happened? I don't want that to be me. And I feel like it takes a very strong person on both sides, man and woman, to be so committed to the longevity of the institution of marriage, of the relationship, to stick through, to fight through the tough times. Because, of course, we know getting pregnant, having a baby, that's a very stressful time. That's a huge transition in a person's life. You go from not having kids, not being a parent, to being a parent. I'm old school. I will only be with one woman. Those people that jump bed to bed, I don't understand it either. It's just like, I don't hate on, I'm not here to judge nobody. Everybody got their own thing. So if it's your thing to sleep around multiple people, hey, that's you. But I'm just saying, if you do that knowing that you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, which is supposed to be a committed relationship, meaning just you and that person, not you and all these other people that you sleeping with and the other person doesn't know about, then marriage is not for you. A committed relationship is not for you. Just say, okay, you're not going to be committed, and then there are women who are okay with that. It's not like you have to change who you are, your values to fit what society wants you to do. Just be yourself, man. Be yourself. That way you save a lot of people a lot of pain, from a lot of pain and hurt and betrayal. Just be yourself. Know who you are. If you know that you can't keep your dick in your pants, if you know that you can't keep your coochie in your freaking panties, then own that shit. Own it. and make it known to the person that you're dealing with. You know, the people that you come across that you are infatuated with or you fall in love with, make it known to them like, hey, this is who I am. You know, I don't never see myself committing to one person. Make it known. But hey, let me go. I can go on and on about this forever. But I do have class, so I'm gonna catch you guys in the next vlog. All right. Make sure you share your comments below and share this video. All right, catch you guys later. Bye.